Captain Bill and Tommy too. Adventures waiting just for you.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to another Torque and Thrust talk show. My name is Bill, and today we are doing episode number 35. Well, that royally sucks. Joining me today is none other than my co host, Tommy D of Level Flight Simulations. So let's start off with our weekly debrief. Tommy D, what went well this week?
What went well this week? I started my new hours. So now my days off are Wednesday, Saturday, and Sunday. So
The
that
donut,
is a big
right? That's what
win.
you were saying is the donut.
The donut shift. Yep. Big win. So we're happy about that.
Good.
Otherwise, none of us got sick. Everybody's healthy. Good week.
I was gonna say you're sounding a lot better than you did last week, which I think is a huge positive. Are you
Oh
feeling a
yeah,
lot better?
that was horrible. I am feeling a lot better, and
Okay.
that knocked me down for about 7 days total.
Oh, did it really? Oh man,
Oh
that's
yeah. Oh yeah.
it wasn't a was a pretty serious one, I guess. That's not good.
Yeah. Yeah. I did something that I rarely do. I called off from work.
That is extremely rare. Yeah.
Hmm.
What went well? For me, I got off. I was just telling Tommy in the pre-show. I got off high captain minimums this week. Which for those of you that don't know, when you're a new captain at the airline, when you have less than 100 hours as a captain on that jet, you are restricted. You have higher minimums, approach minimums, etc. Which require it's just for safety reasons. So there's a lot of exemptions and like different rules and stuff that apply to you when you're a high captain or high minimums captain. And this week I finally went over the 100 hours and have more than 100 hours. So that was huge. That was really nice. Now it's kind of less restrictions I have to worry about and more experience underneath my belt. I didn't mention it last week, but there was somebody last week on one of my deadheads. We were deadheading from Houston to somewhere, or no, I'm sorry, Orlando to Houston is what we were doing. And I was getting in the back of the airplane because I was going back as a passenger, and I was waiting for the line to move. There was this couple that was already seated, and they said, "Oh, Bill, are you flying us to John Wayne today in Orange County?" And I was like, "Oh no, I'm going to I can't remember where I was going. I was going somewhere else." I'm like, "I think I'm going to Charlotte." Charlotte, that's what it was. And I said, "I'm going to Charlotte." But no, and they were like, "Oh, that's upsetting. We were hoping you were flying us to John Wayne today." And I was like, "No, no, I got to go enjoy some more cold weather in Charlotte." And then I walked past and I looked down. My ID badge was covered, and then because my FO was like, "Who was that?" I'm like, "I have no idea who that was. Like, no idea." And I looked down, I'm like, and my badge was covered because I've had that happen before where someone comes up, sees my badge and goes, "Hey, Bill." And I'm like, "How do you know my name?" And they're like, "It's on your it's on your ID badge."
Yeah.
So I don't honestly know because usually if they know me from like the Torque and Thrust talk show or social media, they'll say, "Oh, you're Captain Bill official," right? But they didn't say any of that. They just were having a friendly conversation with me about wanting me to fly them to that they were hoping I was flying them to John Wayne. And I was like, I still don't know. Like I have absolutely no idea. My wife's originally from California, so I texted her. I was like, "Do you know anybody or have any family members that are traveling to California today from Houston that I don't know about?" And my wife's like, "No." So I was like, "I don't." So they made my day. It was a nice interaction, but at the end of the day, I still don't know. I don't know who they were or how they knew me. With that also being said, I had the opportunity last week, or was it last week? While I was waiting for my flight home, I got to run into Lima Sierra. She is a air traffic controller out in Boston Center TME right now. She's eventually going to be transferring to Logan Local, which is awesome because that means I get to talk to her when I'm landing in Boston. I go there quite a bit. But she was walking out, and I recognized her and I waved at her, and it took her a second, and then she was like, "Oh my God, Captain Bill." I'm like, "Yeah, what are you doing in Chicago?" So she was on her way to go take a tour of TradeCon. She does a lot of good union work. I think she's communications with the National Air Traffic Controllers Association. She gave me a ton of stickers, which was awesome. A lot of cool stickers that I put on my bag. So that was definitely a positive. Tommy, what could have gone better this week?
What could have gone better this week? So yesterday was my first Wednesday off on the new schedule, right?
Okay.
So one Sunday, as the better half and I were at the laundromat at 11 o'clock in the morning, and in my mindset, I'm due to go to work.
Mm-hmm.
That's when they switched my schedule.
Oh.
Um, yeah, I found out Sunday about that. That could have gone better. And yesterday was my first day off, my first Wednesday off, and I was all pumped about it. And I had to go in for 2 hours for mandatory training. Like, you got to
Oh,
be kidding me, right?
really? That
Yeah,
sucks.
but it was a good training. It was a good training. It was right along with apparently the work that I'm gonna be doing from now on. So that was,
Well, at least it applied.
you know yeah, yeah, appreciate the heads up on that one too, but so I'm essentially there are 5 people that do my job, the medical portion of it,
Mhm,
and now with my new hours, I'm more support for the other 4,
mhm.
so now I'm the numbers guy. I
Oh,
track
okay.
our injury trends and all that stuff now, that's me. I'm the medical number guy.
Is that what you wanted to do, or is that just part is that or did you do that at the old facility too?
No, no, literally, um, last week was the first time that I looked at the, website that we used,
Mhm,
and it's actually really, really easy. It's nothing. It actually tracks the trends for me. I just gotta plug in what it is I wanna specifically look for.
mhm,
But,
okay.
yeah, no, so yesterday was the first day in that role. So,
Oh,
when I
numbers
go in
guy.
tonight yeah, and the cool thing is, I can use my boss's office. So
Oh,
I can
that's nice. Kinda
sequester myself and
disappear.
do whatever it is I
Yeah,
need to do.
okay. Well,
So that's a plus.
yeah, and,
But I
so
could
what
have gotten a little of a, heads up of all
that's
this.
what you were
That
doing.
would have been nice.
Yeah, it's always what plan for the worst or, plan for the was it expect the worst, plan for the best, or something like the plan for
Plan
the
plan for the best, plan for the worst, and hope for the best.
hope for the best, there you go. For me, what could have gone better, and this is the elephant in the room you guys can see on the upper left. Tommy can't see it, but on the upper left-hand side of the screen, we have the black ribbon. Was American Airlines 5342, the midair collision over the Potomac. So last week we were actually supposed to do this show on January 30th. I was about ready to go to bed on the 29th at around 9 p.m. When I started getting messages from coworkers, messages from rampers that I knew in Chicago, and uh, started getting social media notifications about a incident at the time or a I guess law enforcement slash emergency services response in Washington D.C. And then I started looking at the picture on the feed that came up, and when I saw that massive response, the only thing I could have thought of is like, oh crap, somebody went into the Potomac, and that's when it updated that there was a airplane that had collided. At first, they said it was a police helicopter. So the first thing I did is I went and grabbed my wife because I was in shock. You all got to understand, I started my career in 2009 as a pilot. So in 2009, in December 2009, I took my first glider flight. Now, the last major airline accident, massive loss of life, was the Colgan Air crash in February of 2009. So to put that in perspective, I've been flying for almost 16 years, and of that 16 years, it has been in this bubble of safe culture and safe environment. I didn't know any better because it was, I mean, we had like we lost Atlas Air in the Trinity Bay, and I hate to say it, and Tommy and I have talked about this. There's a lot of GA accidents happen, but in the airline, the 121 passenger carrying environment, tragic accidents like this are very rare, especially in the past 16 years. Not to mention, a midair collision is an abnormality more than anything. So I was in absolute shock, and also I had to grab my wife because she was the only one near me that I could express how I felt because I was in tears. I'm not gonna lie, I was in tears when we were watching this news. So then it became me just sitting at the edge of my couch watching the news, trying to figure out what the heck is going on. And my wife asked me what happened, and I have a pretty good idea what happened. Within minutes, I explained it to my wife what probably happened, but I'm gonna keep that to myself because I'm not an expert. I wasn't there. I don't have any of the data, which I'm gonna make this a PSA to all those out there who feel upon themselves to start pointing out random conspiracy theories and theories about the crash. Pump the brakes for me. It is extremely, extremely disrespectful and disgusting to not honor and disrespect the memories of those that were lost before they were even pulled out of the Potomac. and insulting their memories with the stupidity that is these stupid conspiracy theorists, or excuse me, conspiracy theories. We got to let NTSB do their job. They are literally the experts. Just because you can Google crap doesn't make you the expert. And that's the thing. A majority of these people that are coming up with conspiracy theories are people who have no aviation experience whatsoever. So do me a huge favor, shut up, sit on the sidelines, and let NTSB do their job. Okay. Now, with that being said, I'll bring Tommy back. And I warned Tommy. I did warn Tommy that I was going to get a little serious on a couple things, but we do have a couple updates. We don't want to be completely tone deaf to American 5342 because it was the reason we canceled our show. And you'll see today our show is a little more on the comedic side. That's how we intended it, and that's why we canceled it, because talking about being tone deaf, it would have not really reflected well on us to have such a comedic show just after a major air disaster. But as of February 5th, the update for American 5342, the NTSB's investigation continues as wreckage from the Mitsubishi or Bombardier CRJ 700 has been offloaded from the barge and is transferred to a secure location or a hangar for layout and examination by the NTSB. The examination of the wreckage will include accounting for major portions of the aircraft, witness marks on the aircraft structure and fracture surfaces, general airworthiness of the aircraft and TCAS system, or the traffic collision avoidance system, and related components, cockpit switch position, and instrument readings. So the NTSB is starting to go through their process of investigating and covering all the bases so they can truly know what happened that night. On the positive side, I know there's a lot of bad news, and I found some comfort in this, and positive is that all remains of the 67 victims that were involved, so the 3 people on the helicopter and the 60 passengers plus 4 crew members on the CRJ, they have been recovered. And as far as I remember yesterday, there was one set of remains that had yet to be identified yet, and that's because the family member had just submitted the DNA testing that day. So as far as I'm aware, that's probably going to be completed today. But the good news is that the 67 victims have all been recovered and are on their way to go to their final resting with their families. NTSB did recover the FDRs, or the flight data recorders, and the CVRs, or cockpit voice recorders, of the CRJ 700. And the NTSB has said that the collision happened from the CRJ 700 point of view at 325 feet plus or minus 25 feet. ATC data, so the data that the air traffic controllers were seeing in the tower cab that night, indicates that the Blackhawk was at 300 feet, and the NTSB is currently verifying data points from the Blackhawk flight data recorder because they don't have timestamps like they do necessarily on the civilian side of things, so they're trying to match them up to give an accurate account of what happened that night. As of right now, recovery operations will continue tomorrow in the Potomac River, and additional information will be released as it becomes available. This is all from the NTSB website. If you go to ntsb.gov, it's right at the top. You click on updates. This is the only source of valid information for you all to get updates. Okay, so please do us a huge favor. Either listen to the show, because each week we'll update with it, but if you need updates, go there. Okay, it's just I don't know about you, Tommy. Have you seen ridiculous conspiracy theories? I'm wondering if it's just on my social media, because I just keep seeing ridiculous things pop
all
up.
over the place.
Yeah,
It
so
is
just do
all over the place.
same. Also, shout out to our Donald J. Trump. I'm gonna say something that a lot of people aren't going to necessarily like. But before the bodies were ever pulled out of the Potomac, it was absolutely despicable of him to come in front of the press and blame DEI for the accident. Absolutely unacceptable for a world leader such as the President of the United States to make a statement like that before the NTSB experts were even remotely close to starting to figure out what happened. So today we are diving into something that's been making waves in the aviation world, literally. We're talking about the XB-1, a prototype from Boom Supersonic designed to be a precursor to a return of commercial supersonic flight. It's a pretty bold ambition, but it's not just hype. They're actually onto something, so let's find out what they've been doing this past couple weeks. So before we get into the nitty-gritty, let's recap the basics, and we've all learned about the Concorde, for example. The iconic needle nose-shaped jet that zipped across the Atlantic at supersonic speeds. And in fact, we'll talk to Tommy about it in a little bit, but Tommy's actually seen one back when they were still landing at JFK. Now, the Concorde actually retired in 2003, and since then, commercial air travel has been all about efficiency and relatively slower subsonic speeds. Boom Supersonic's goal is to bring back that speed, that excitement, but this time around, hopefully, sustainability and economically, that's where the XB-1 comes in. Now, the XB-1 isn't really meant to carry passengers. It's a demonstrator aircraft, a kind of proof of concept built to test the technology and aerodynamics needed for Boom's larger planned passenger jet, the Overture. Essentially, the XB-1 is a mini Concorde, and what they learn from its flight test will be pivotal in determining whether Overture can take to the skies and actually be successful. We're talking about massive investments here, and the success of the XB-1 is critical. And this isn't just a fun side project. This is about disrupting air travel, disrupting in a good way as we know it. Now, let's talk specifics. The XB-1 is a sleek looking profile aircraft made with advanced composite materials and boasting some pretty cutting edge aerodynamic design. They've employed a delta wing configuration, which is a similar design to the Concorde, which is crucial for high speed flight. And of course, we can't forget the engines. The XB-1 is powered by three GE J85 15 engines, which are modified military jet engines that have been around for a while and are essentially repurposed for this project. This is actually kind of the critical point we'll be getting to in a little bit. That's important because it's about the cost effectiveness of the program. So, what are they aiming to do? They're aiming to break the sound barrier with XB1, gather crucial data, and lay the groundwork for the Overture. And I know what you're thinking. Okay, cool, another supersonic jet. But here's the thing, it's not that simple. This isn't just about going fast, it's about going in a way that is sustainable, economically viable, and actually addresses the issues on why the Concorde failed. And let's be real for a minute. The Concorde was amazing, but it had some major drawbacks. It was incredibly noisy, incredibly expensive to operate, and had notoriously high fuel consumption. Those sonic booms were not appreciated, and it was really a niche product. There are factors that Boom is trying to address with the XB1 that ultimately the Overture, and they've stated aspirations for the aircraft to be quieter, using sustainable aviation fuel or SAF, and designed for better economic performance. And the keyword in all of that is stated. So how much of that is really possible and is still actually up for debate right now. Now, this is where we need to put on our critical thinking caps because with Boom's ambitions, they're really inspiring, but there are some significant hurdles. So, first, the sustainable aviation fuel push. While SAF is definitely a move in the right direction, the current supply chain is nowhere near enough to support a fleet of supersonic jets. And remember, these engines won't be sipping fuel. So the production of sustainable aviation fuel has to scale dramatically up for this even to be a possibility. And then there's the noise issue. They're claiming a quieter sonic boom, but let's be clear, it's still a sonic boom. It'll still be loud and will still have to adhere to noise restrictions, and they need to show that they can really mitigate the noise impact over populated areas, or the routes these planes can take will be severely restricted. And that's a huge question mark that affects their commercial viability. It's not enough to make a plane that can go fast. You need one that can go fast and go where people actually want to go, and that means over land. And let's talk about those old military engines. While they've been modified, they aren't exactly cutting edge in terms of fuel efficiency or emissions. It's a pragmatic choice for the prototype, sure, but does it really solve the core problem of sustainability in the long run? It feels a bit like using an old engine on a newfangled design car. While the car may look good, the engine will drag and the overall experience down for the environment. The jury's still out whether the Overture will be able to boast new engines or whether it will rely on old engine technology. What's even more interesting in the news around Boom is we see a lot of positive headlines, a lot of investor hype, but you also see critical articles questioning their actual progress, the viability of their technology, and the real environmental impact. It's a case of disruptive technology, all the buzz and excitement, but the real test is always the execution and scaling it up practically. So, where does this leave us with the XB1? Is the XB1 and the dream of commercial supersonic flight the beginning of something new or just another flash in the pan? Honestly, it's too soon to tell. The XB1 is just the first step, a very important one, but it's by no means the guarantee of long term success. We're watching a company push the boundaries of what's possible in aviation, and that's exciting in all sorts of ways. But also is important is to always remember that we need to look carefully at their claims of sustainability, look at the actual numbers and not just the marketing, and always challenge the status quo. Hopefully, the XB1's test flights will give us more data, more answers, and will move the discussion forward. But with that being said, let's let Tommy D take over here and have some. I believe you have a gaming update, correct, with the 757 Bluebird?
Yes, finally, they put something out, so let's
Cool.
keep it going with the big pencil-looking aircraft. Bluebird 757, the 200-300 variant. Something that I had brought up in episode 2 of the Torque and Thrust talk show. We were still calling it podcast back then. That's how long they've been developing this aircraft, and quite frankly, it's driving me up the wall. I'm a big fan of a 7.5. I have flown on a 7.5, and I had one for Century of Flight that was a payware, and it was just a blast to fly, even sitting at my computer in my living room. It was a fun, fun aircraft. Progress has been, I don't want to call it slow. It's been median because Bluebird is trying to bust into the Boeing market for the simulator aircraft to go along with PMDG. So they have pushed it off, pushed it off. We're going on 2.5, almost 3 years waiting for this aircraft. They have recently put out a 30-minute YouTube video on their YouTube channel telling you exactly what's going on with the aircraft. And they said about 25 minutes into it, I was up to 6 times. They said, "But we won't tell you we're not gonna go on a release date." It is coming out in 2025. That's about as much as he would say. One of the problems that they did have to tackle, and it was kinda interesting, was the FMCs, the flight managing computers. They were having a problem getting them to work independently of one another, like they do in the Phoenix and the PMDGs and all the other aircraft out there now, but they finally got that done. Um, the look of the aircraft is amazing. Like, I highly, highly recommend you go watch this video, even though if you just pass through it to where they're showing the outside views and the, um especially, like, the landing gear, like, you actually see the brake lines and everything in the landing gear. They used it in the United livery. That's gonna be one of the stock liveries that come with it. There is so much detail that's going into the looks. I'm hoping that the flight dynamics are good, but they're saying that the flight dynamics are gonna be spot on. So you'll get the quote unquote X-plane flight dynamic feel in Microsoft Flight Simulator. Now, specifically the Microsoft Flight Simulator. Bad news for those of you who think MSFS 2024 is all that in a bag of chips, which contact me by email, levelflightsimulations@gmail.com. We'll talk about that. But this aircraft will not be compatible with 2024 on its initial release. It will come along months down the line, and it will be free. They will not charge you anything to update the aircraft for 2023. Sorry, 2024. It's gonna have the same exact characteristics, looks, dynamics, um, independent working FMCs. It's gonna have better views. So, like those of you who've seen me on stream, normally when I go past 18,000 feet and everything looks good in the cockpit, I switch to like what I call the chill vibe view, and normally it's like over the wing or somewhere in the passenger compartment. This is gonna have even better looking than that. It's gonna be a lot more actuated from what they were showing. I mean, I was pretty impressed by the YouTube video about it. But that, and then one quick one that just popped across my ticker, and I when Bill and I were in the pre-show, we were actually catching up because normally we talk a few times a week. We didn't speak much last week except from that dude, you okay type. And it was understandable. For those of you who think 2024 is great right now, again, we'll talk about that some other time. If you have the Inabuilds Milwaukee Airport, which is free, it's a payware free uh, airport, and the iOS and everything works. I fully tested it. They just crossed over. They made it compatible with 2024. While Bill and I were in the pre-show, I was actually looking at it. It looks really, really good, but I don't know. Maybe I'll try using it today, and we'll see what 2024 does. I've been plinking in general aviation on that.
Yeah. So thanks for the gaming update, Tommy. And we're going to switch it over now. We're going to do some automotive news. So today we're putting the pedal to the metal, or maybe the electric accelerator, to explore some of the hottest new rides slated to hit the streets in 2025. Now, we're not talking about your grandpa's car, folks. We're talking about innovation, performance, and a healthy dose of style. I know many of you are either thinking about your next upgrade or just love staying in the know-how. So I've gathered the latest scoop on some insider info and a few data points to spice things up for 2025. Now, before we jump in, let's acknowledge that sometimes the automotive industry is a bit like predicting weather. Things can change, but based on what we know right now, these are the cars turning heads and generating serious buzz. So we'll be looking at a range of makes and models for performance beasts to everyday heroes. We're going to get into the details, but before we do, I want to highlight something important. Personalization of these vehicles is key. So these manufacturers these days are really pushing user experience and providing a diverse spread of options so you can get exactly what you want, which I think is absolutely awesome. Now, let's kick things off. I know you're all performance oriented, so we'll start with a couple models that are really bringing the heat. To start off, we've got the Cadillac CT4V Blackwing. Now, Cadillac has been making a strong comeback, throwing down some serious performance cards. This is the little sedan that thinks it's a supercar. We're talking a twin-turbo V6 delivering a whole lot of power with exceptional handling. And this isn't just a car, it's a driving experience. It's a statement. I mean, look at it. According to pre-sales data, a chunk of buyers are first-time Cadillac purchasers who are looking for something fun and sporty. The CT4V Blackwing continues Cadillac's push into that market and is definitely one to watch. Speaking of performance, let's not forget the Chevy Corvette, a classic. The Corvette has always been one of the most iconic American sports car, and you know how it is. Muscle cars are in the American automotive DNA. In recent years, Chevy has changed it up in the position of engine to increase performance, and it has been a winning strategy. The new versions will continue to push the boundaries with rumors of further electrification. This means that serious speed and handling, but also has the potential for some exciting new hybrid capabilities. And honestly, I heard the EV Corvette, and I'm really looking forward to see how they continue to evolve this legend to stay in United States history. Okay, now let's shift gears a little bit and let's talk about something that's a little more practical. But practical doesn't always mean boring, right? So we're talking about the Honda Accord and the Honda Civic. These are two powerhouses in the sedan and hatchback segment, and they're popular for a reason. We're expecting refresh models in 2025, likely with upgrades to tech, fuel efficiency, and safety features. Honda understands the market, and they are experts at providing reliable and well-built cars that cover all bases. Now, statistics shows that these continue to sell well year in and year out, and that trend looks to and that trend looks to set to continue for 2025. Now, let's dive into the electric realm here. A lot of you have asked about the future of EV cars. We talked about it a lot on the show, and one card in my research constantly comes up. It's the Lucid. I'll point it over there. The Lucid Air. This isn't just another electric car. It's a statement about what is possible when you focus on innovation. It's a real high-end alternative to a Tesla, offering incredible range, stunning design, and a truly luxurious interior. And we're not just talking transportation, we're talking about a premium experience. A recent study found that the higher end EV market is booming, and the Lucid Air is one of the vehicles driving the growth. They have an advantage by focusing on luxury, design, and performance instead of just its costs. This could be a game changer for the EV market. Now, next up, there's another car that is synonymous with luxury and quality, the Mercedes-Benz E450. This car is the definition of refined elegance, and we're anticipating upgrades in tech, integration, and more sophisticated driver assistance features, and of course, that signature Mercedes-Benz smooth ride. The E-Class is a real classic, and the 2025 models will only make it more desirable. This one is for those who want to travel in comfort and in style. Now, kind of going up the ladder here, the next one, we're looking at a little bit more of some sporty fun, and we're checking out the Porsche Boxster and Cayman. These two are the gold standard for nimble handling and exhilarating performance. While not anticipating huge redesigns for 2025, Porsche are all about incremental improvements and refinements. This means that we can expect more power, upgraded suspension, and some subtle styling tweaks. For those who want to an engaging driving experience, these two are still top of the list, and statistics have shown that they continue to be a very popular option for young professionals. Speaking of engaging driving experiences, you can't forget the dynamic duo, the Subaru BRZ and the Toyota GR86. These are the fun, affordable, lightweight sports coupes coupes, as Jeremy Clarkson says, that many of us have been waiting for. They offer that classic rear-wheel drive feel, and they're just brilliantly balanced vehicles. They are a perfect gateway for people who want to get in the world of sports cars. They're not the most powerful or the most luxurious, but they're very fun to drive. With the new model, it's likely that we will see more user interface improvements, which is something younger buyers are always looking for. Whew! Okay, wow. We covered a lot I think I did that in a record in like 5 minutes. The top 10 cars to look forward to in 2025. We've gone from the raw power with the Cadillac CT4V, Blackwing, the Chevy Corvette, and through the practicality of the Honda Accord and the Civic, all the way to the luxury and tech of the Lucid Air, the Mercedes-Benz E450, and we even checked out some iconic sports cars like the Porsche Boxster and Cayman, and the Subaru BRZ and the Toyota GR86. So, what are the key takeaways from automotive news today? First off, 2025 is shaping up to be a really exciting year for car enthusiasts. Secondly, there's literally something for everyone, whether you're after raw performance, luxury, practicality, or cutting edge tech, there's a vehicle out there for you. And finally, it's clear that manufacturers are really listening to the market, focusing on not just what a car has under the hood, but also how it integrates into our modern lives. But that is it for automotive news. We are adding something for the month of February. As many of you know, the month of February is Black History Month. And even though our White House is trying to whitewash history by getting rid of educational series in the military regarding the Tuskegee Airmen and Black history in general, we're not going to forget that because they have played a pivotal role not only in the aviation industry, but in the history of the United States. So today, I'm going to quickly talk about Bessie Coleman. So I did talk about Bessie Coleman, Elizabeth Bessie Coleman, on my historic podcast, the ACE Aviation Communication and Education. But I figured I would bring it up here and start from the beginning. And throughout this month, each episode, I'll bring up another Black or African American aviator, someone who has really contributed to our industry and has paved the way for future Black aviators. So Elizabeth Bessie Coleman was the first African American woman to hold a pilot's license. She was born in Atlanta, Texas in 1892 during a time when racism and sexism were rampant in American society. And despite these obstacles, Bessie's determination and courage led her to become a pioneer in aviation. Bessie grew up in a family of sharecroppers and had to work in the cotton fields from a young age. However, she was determined to get an education and save up enough money to attend college. She graduated from the Colored Agricultural and Normal University in Langston, Oklahoma in 1915. Despite her achievements, though, Bessie still faced discrimination when she applied for American flight schools, which refused to admit her because of her race. However, Bessie didn't give up. She learned French and moved to France, where she earned her pilot's license in 1921. When Bessie returned to the United States, she was met with a great fanfare. She also became a celebrity and used her fame to advocate for civil rights and women's suffrage. She also performed in air shows, dazzling audiences with her aerial acrobatics. Bessie's life, unfortunately, was cut short when she died in a plane crash in 1926. However, her legacy lived on, inspiring generations of African American women to pursue their dreams and break barriers. In this next segment, which is kind of replacing for right now Jargon and Jiffy, we're going to say our pet peeves in succession, one for one, back and forth, with no explanation and no context, because I think that'd be absolutely hilarious. So, Tommy, are you ready with your list?
The word ginormous.
Being inconsiderate.
Dishes more than one day in the sink.
Talking on your phone or watching videos without earphones in a public bathroom.
The salt remnants on my windshield in the spring.
Oh, wow, that's deep. Parents not parenting their children.
Wow. Okay, so that was like number 7 for me. So
ATC, air traffic control, not responding to my check-ins when they heard us check in. I'm looking right at you, New York approach.
last minute changes after I completed the work.
Newark Airport.
Tire sensors.
Being Group 9 for boarding and crowding the boarding area after gate agents announced to keep the boarding area clear until your group is called.
Shoveling my dirt driveway.
People talking about aviation when they have absolutely no idea what they're talking about.
People walking through the supermarket with their cell phone on open speaker.
Not following the rules is another pet peeve of mine.
Web searches that say this is what you're looking for and it's nowhere close.
Not being on time is a pet peeve of mine. Punctuality.
Animals dead on the side of the road.
When people say I'm smart but I'm too lazy. And that was pet peeves without context or explanation, which now leads us to our discussion topic. We're not going to explain it. That's the whole point. So, we're going to go into our discussion topic, which Tommy actually came up with this week. It's a really good one, and is why the talk show is called, or this episode's called, Well, That Royally Sucks. Tommy found an article of the top 10 worst jobs in history. So, Tommy, we split them up. Tommy's going to talk about a couple of them. I'm going to talk about, we're going to go back and forth kind of like we did with the pet peeves. So, Tommy, why don't tell us the top or the number one worst job in history?
The number one worst job is groom of the stool, and this is horrible.
Ex What?
Implemented by Henry the Seventh and only abolished in 1901 by Edward the Seventh, the role of the groom of the stool required the holder to take the monarch to the toilet, check whatever went on, and then clean the regal bottom afterwards. And it was actually considered a prestigious job in the kingdom. No, thank you. I will mow
Prestigious
the lawn
because it's because they often had one-on-one time, right? With the royal with the king?
with the royal. Yeah.
Oh my god, and that's where the cover art for this show comes from, is the, the poor person who has to clean up after is chasing after the king with toilet paper stuck to their shoe.
Hmm.
Um, that's where the episode "That Royally Sucks" comes from. It's because of that one job.
Yeah.
That is
Or I will
crazy.
mow the lawn. It's fine.
Yeah, I'll go. Well, and I've seen it where, like, in the castle back in the day, the toilets didn't go to plumbing a lot of time. The toilets, it was like it was on a ledge, and the toilet was an open hole to the ground where the peasants or the lower class on the bottom would pick up after whoever was crapping from the castle.
Yep. And
Yeah.
if you ever go to Venice, they're still there.
Oh God.
Like, the holes in the ground are still in Venice. They're not used, thank God,
I would
obviously,
say
but
I hope not.
they're still there. It's part of the, like, the old style of Venice architecture, if you will.
Oh, well, I'll tell you what. When I was walking around New York this last week, some of those subway, there's grates that are like, I guess, air vents from the subway tunnel. Some of those subway
Yeah,
tunnels
it's exactly what they are.
smell like exactly what that was. So, uh,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah. So, and I will warn everybody who is listening, who is watching, make sure you grab your nose plugs because it only gets stinkier from here.
Yeah, it
Um,
only gets worse from
it
here.
gets worse. All right, so Whipping Boys number two. This one isn't actually about waste, but there is a doubt whether this is a real thing or not. But some stories tell of boys who were educated with princes or child kings and received the punishments earned by their betters. Reputedly, the sons of noblemen, a whipping boy would be beaten because a tutor could not hit a prince or a monarch. So, like the groom of the stool, the role of whipping boy was considered desirable, presumably more by the parents than the poor child that was getting beat or getting spanked, basically, because it fostered closeness to royalty. So the tutor couldn't be like, "No, you dummy, 2 plus 2 isn't 5," and then rather than like smacking the kid, I could just picture him like making eye contact with the prince and then just backhanding some random kid that was standing there. That's what I see
Yep.
when I picture this. That's a horrible job. Could you imagine your parents being like, "Hey, I got you a job at the castle today. Oh, please tell me it's the royal jester job. No, you're a whipping boy." I'm a what?
Yeah,
Oh, I'd
yeah.
be
No, thank you.
irritated. Yeah, no, thank you. All right, what's next, Tommy? Number three.
So number 3 is the tosher. The tosh, as a slang term for junk or rubbish, derives from the word toshers. Present in Victorian London, they made a living traveling through the sewers searching for anything of value that had been lost. Being a tosher was illegal and involved spending all day ankle deep in sewage, but some made a reasonable living that made the unpleasantness bearable. Grubbers could be found doing something similar in drains.
God, it's the modern it's modern day dumpster diving is what
Yeah,
they were finding
exactly.
valuables
Or
in.
sewer diving, if you will.
God, I guess I mean, back then too, there was a very there was a disparagement. I don't even know if that's the right word, but a large separation between lower and upper classes. So I guess you did whatever you could do to find
Yeah,
stuff.
and I'm pretty sure Mike Rowe did something with that on the world's
Oh, really?
dirtiest
Something
job.
similar? I bet. Oh, God.
Yeah.
The next one I have is the Pure Finder. So, in the 18th and 19th century, tanneries sought the best way to dry leather for bookbindings. Their solution spawned on a whole new career path. The pure that tanneries sought was dog feces. So, a pure finder's job was to collect as much as possible. So, once people realized there was gold in this, competition became fierce for dog mess. Um, and I'll never sniff an old book cover again after that.
True story.
That's crazy. But well, there's more coming. I know there's more coming that it just gets worse. Um,
Oh, yeah.
it almost makes like being a whipping boy probably the best out of all of these. Just saying, if I had to choose between which one's which. But go
So
ahead, Tommy.
far, yeah, whipping
Yeah.
boy. So I got the wool fuller. During the Middle Ages, wool became the center of England's economy. By 1300, there were probably 15 million sheep in England, outnumbering humans 3 to 1. After its initial loose weave, the wool needed to be cleaned and stripped of grease. That's where the fuller comes in. The job of wool fuller required marching on the spot in a vat all day. That was boring and tiring, but the perfect liquid to remove dirt and grease and whiten the wool. The was stale human urine.
Oh god.
So, added to tramping all day, your feet were soaked in old wee, and the cost of that was the cost of the finest cloth in England,
Oh
in Europe,
god.
actually.
Oh god.
That's just wrong.
I'm just hoping that like none of these practices are still a thing. You know what I mean? Like, oh, we make it the old fashioned way. Okay. When you say old fashioned way, what exactly are you referring to? Are you referring to that?
Right, because this is about as old-fashioned it could get.
Oh god. Okay. Oh, okay. Well, this one makes me gag. This one really does. So everybody strap in here. The next one is the sin eater. Sin eater. The practice of sin eating was most common in Wales and the Welsh border region of England. Though there are some similar traditions across Europe. It usually involved eating a piece of bread placed on the chest of a recently deceased person. Gross, but not that bad. I would say I don't okay. It says gross but not that bad. That's disgusting. However, in doing so, the sin eater took the sins of the departed. It eased the deceased soul, but some sin eaters risk arriving at the pearly gates weighed down by the sins of hundreds of others. So it didn't really go into like how you're selected, but I wouldn't want to be selected for that. And I mean, could
No.
you imagine you're like the guy, the was it pariah of the town, and they're just like, oh yeah, Bob, come on, man, you're the town sin eater. The poor guy is just like every week, especially like during the plague, and I'll be like, oh yeah, go ahead, got another piece of bread, we got one right there, we got a whole buffet lined up for you, and all to risk
Yeah.
your all that sin to have when you're going to the pearly gates. I'd be like, okay, as I'm dying, I'd be like, okay, which one of you is gonna eat all the bread off of me because I need to be able to make it up there, guys. You know, like oh my
Right?
god, that is so that gives me ugh.
Well, think about doing job number 6 with this person,
Uh-oh.
plague bearer.
Oh god.
In 1665, the plague caused 69,000 deaths in London. Government directives required nighttime collection and burial of victims. Parishes hired plague bearers who toured the streets at night, collecting the dead and disposing of them in mass graves in churchyards. They spent their nights around plague victims and rotting corpses, risking their lives. And their days were spent in the churchyard, surrounded by those same bodies, because they were required to live there to avoid
Uh,
infecting the others.
God, that reminds me of that scene in Monty Python. Uh,
Yeah,
bring out your
yeah, and
dead,
that's where they got it from the skit from.
bring out your dead. Oh,
Bring
this was
out your dead.
they'd be like, this one ain't dead yet. Oh, he's almost there. Come on, do me a favor.
Oh,
Clonk. I'm not dead
horrible.
yet.
Mike wrote it and do a special on that one.
Oh, that's God. Okay, yeah, I can see where the sin eaters and plague barriers were right next to each other. This one's a little more not grotesque. It just this one sounds like it hurt. The next one I have is the lime burner. So lime has many uses. Crushed and heated to about 800 degrees for several days. It produced quicklime used by tanners and dyers. So soaking quicklime in water created slaked lime, which was used in mortar and whitewash. So like old school paint and brick mortar. Besides the heat, a lime burner's job was terrifyingly dangerous. Quicklime is caustic, which for those who don't know, that means it's burns. It's not good for your skin. Highly unstable and reacts violently to water. It can spit, steam, and even explode. It was so dangerous it was sometimes used as a weapon thrown at the enemy to cause painful burning in the eyes, mouth, or anywhere it came into contact with sweat. Oh my god. Could you imagine working on that? I'd be like, oh my god, sweat. With my luck, I would straight up just like have my hand in it because I've done this with like chili powder before and go, oh man, and then go like this. Ah, you know what I mean? Like, oh, that'd be bad. That would be so bad.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
I would absolutely hate that.
Oh,
So that one's
man.
not dirty, but that one's just dangerous, just downright dangerous. All right,
Yeah.
Tommy, what you got for number 9?
Oh, this one is classic. A petardier. The word petard is derived from the French Peter, meaning to fart. Petards were often bell-shaped metal devices filled with gunpowder and fixed to a wooden base. The base was attached to the wall or gate of a besieged castle, and the explosion focused to cause maximum damage. Tardiers operated these hugely dangerous, unstable devices as they are likely to kill themselves as to damage the enemy's castle. The phrase "hoist by our own petard," meaning to be foiled by your own plan, comes from the prevalence of petardiers being blown up by their own bombs.
Oh god, because they were so
No
volatile and
thanks.
unstable. Oh my god.
Yeah. Jeez.
Okay. Where are the privates at? Yeah, you guys go do that.
Right?
All right, and the last one, the number 10 for the history's worst jobs is the gong farmer. So, before modern drainage, the bodily waste of increasing urban populations was a problem. London, like many cities, provided houses of easement, which were public toilets. But in the late 14th century, there were 16 for a population of around 30,000 people. So, germ theory may not have been around, but smelly theory was certainly around. And this is where the gong farmer came in. Only permitted to work at night, gong farmers, also called nightmen, were tasked with digging out and taking away all of the human waste in cesspits. They were paid per ton, and they spent all night in deep holes up to their waist or neck in human excrement. Some died of disease or suffocated, and for those who lived, it was hardly a dream job. Presumably, they struggled to even get a handshake, never mind a hug. Oh, God.
Oh,
Okay. That was number 10, but I feel like that might have been the worst one because you're literally
yeah,
cleaning the waste of an entire population.
yeah, yeah.
So I think
So
that's probably the worst one.
that is the worst one, and when then all is said and done, I will take Whipping Boy for 500, Alex.
Yeah, I would say out of all of those, I would take. I don't know if I want to do the lime burner though, or the lime. What was that called? The lime job. That was just dangerous. But the whipping boy, as long as you had a good prince or royalty that was with you, and maybe befriended the royalty and be like, hey, I don't know, maybe not get me spanked today or smacked today. That'd be great.
Yeah, look, my head wailed
Maybe.
across the cobblestone wall. Yeah,
Yeah, that'd be great, So I don't know. That was those were pretty bad, but I would say the whipping boy out of all those was probably the least harsh one because everything else had to do with feces or dead people. And
yep.
I ain't about either of those. So I
Nope.
don't want to do any with
No.
any of those. But
Had enough time around the dead.
thanks, Tommy, for the excellent. That was Tommy's idea. That was an excellent discussion topic for this week, and that's once again why the episode's called "That Really Sucks" because a lot of it had to
Mm.
deal with r- picking up after royalty. But with that being said, folks, we're gonna wrap up the live stream, or excuse me, the podcast talk show live stream. All the same thing today. We'll be live next week on February 13th at the same time, 11 a.m. Central, 12 noon Eastern, with our next Torque and Thrust talk show. On behalf of the Torque and Thrust Talk Show, my name is Bill,
I am Tommy.
and we will see you next week. Thanks for watching.
Waiting just for you. From the highways to the flight path, through the storms we'll share a laugh.